Hello everybody, I'm Conquering History Games, and welcome to Progress Report number 9, American Union State of the Kalterkrieg series of progress reports. I know a lot of people have really been looking forward to this one, so let's just jump right into it. Just as a heads up, there's a decent amount of lore at the front. Well, actually, not even a whole lot. It's going to be pretty quick, and then we'll get into the proper progress report. So, here we go in today's progress report, written once again by Kennedy, the head of coding. Welcome to the progress report on the American Union State, or AUS, the largest by geography and population of the American successor states in Kalterkrieg. This progress report will tackle the general situation of the Union State, its broad paths and content for the country as it heads into the post-war era. This progress report is brought to you by Leaf with the assistance of the other U.S. successor leads, Kennedy, who is the glorious man posting this, and Desu. Without further ado, here is the progress report. Lore. The following is the brief overview of the Union State's lore. It's certainly not a complete picture, but should give you an idea of what to expect starting out. More information will be gained both in-game and through future progress reports. Alright, here we go. John Nance Gardner was elected president by the House of Representatives. Long and Reed immediately began to oppose him. After MacArthur's coup, Long headed south and declared the American Union State. President Long finds himself in a harsh position where he is unable to fully focus on necessary reforms and is instead required to focus his energy on winning the Civil War. Cracks of unity within the American First Party begin. In 1942, representatives of the Pacific States of America and the American Union State gather to sign the Declaration of the Rocky Mountain Ceasefire. On May 18, 1943, a lone gunman acting on behalf of the War Powers Committee shoots and kills President Long, disguised as Reed's militia. While the intentions of the War Powers Committee were to install one of their own, these plans were ruined by the ever-so-eager William Dudley Pelley of the Silver Legion's coup. The WPC was forced to postpone their own coup in favor of putting down revolts. With the presidency left empty-handed, Huey's brother Earl stepped in and took charge of the nation. While popular and sharing many beliefs of his brother, he is a weak and sickly man who believes in hedonism. As a result of this, he spends more time keeping the party that his brother built upon rather than reconstructing a nation which needs it. Here is the starting situation. There are a few changes since the last teaser from the American Union State. The portrait, as you might have seen in the leaks, has been changed. There are also some party changes, such as the paternal autocrats now being known as the AFPC, America First Party Corporatist Faction, as well as the National Populists now being known as the CNCP, the Christian Nationalist Crusader Party. However, the three main factions in the American Union State are the Orthodox faction, the Conservative faction, and the Progressive faction. Each has their own reading of Huey Long's legacy. The 1948 elections. The American Union State is a one-party state, and when applied to American democracy, American elections behave a little differently. Some of you may have picked up on this, but general elections in the AUS are generally a formality, and the true election is in the primary stage, which culminates at the party convention, usually in the late summer. As a result, the AUS will feel very different from the other three American successors, which are still multi-party. As a way to make gameplay more enjoyable, we have turned the AUS elections into 7 stages, 6 primaries, and then the convention. One primary will happen each month from January until July, with the convention happening at the end of August. This is pretty similar to how politics was in the 1960s for the Democratic Party, with a few states democratizing their primaries, allowing candidates to build momentum before the convention. Each candidate's faction will be trying to get a majority of delegates. While the 6 primaries themselves don't have a lot of delegates, they will help you build momentum in order to do better at the convention. While governing, each faction will have their own policy objectives. To reflect the nature of the one-party state, each cycle's political tree will have some shared sections to reflect shared AFP goals, and then we'll have a minor branch for each candidate's objective. Here is the 1948 to 1952 tree. President Long will aim to secure further control of the party. President McMath will aim to head off a civil rights crisis by passing necessary reforms, and President Holt will aim to take desyndicalization to the next level. In the 1952 elections, each faction has possibilities of a new candidate. Whoever won in 1948 will run for re-election. Here is the 1952 to 1956 tree. The progressives, led either by McMath or Ellis Arnold, will aim to further decrease the presence of segregation and enact further social and political reforms. After securing the party, the Orthodox faction led by Earl or Russell Long will now aim to improve the economy by reforming the tax code, creating the Earned Income Tax Credit, and expanding farm subsidies. The Conservatives, led by either Rush Holt or Strom Thurmond, will further entrench segregation, head off a yellow scare against liberals, and restrict the ability for people to immigrate. While the executive has a lot more power in the AU West than in the other successors, major legislation will at least be attempted to pass Congress. Similar to the system we showed off for New England, here is the American Union State Congress and law-passing system. However, if the law isn't passed, it can be jammed through with an executive order. However, this could lead to consequences down the road. Internal politics will also play a huge role. Personal relationships with governors and party machines in key states are huge reasons why the Union has stayed together all these years. Originally designed for the AUS, the state UI will be hugely important for them. In addition, we have added specific state-based ideas to distinguish the states. For example, in Arkansas, Governor Sid McMath is quite popular, owing to his unique status. No matter how hard you campaign there as another faction, you are unlikely to unseat him or defeat him there in his bid for the presidency. The 1956 elections will play out in game, but there is no content for the winners for now. Civil rights. For all American Union state politicians, a core issue of the 1950s will be the beginning of the civil rights movement. This movement has been simmering behind the scenes for years by 1948, and will start to become prominent as the country enters the 1950s, presenting the nation with a series of crises. While each president and administration will have a slightly different way of handling things. Additionally, despite the fact that the American Union state has a far tighter control over its politics than the United States of real life or the other American successor states, the movement is not subordinate to the whims of the government. This does not mean that the American Union state is helpless to deal with it. No matter which president enters office in 1948, they will have a variety of tools at their disposal to shape the country as they want. The first of these are the foci, which we have outlined above. Each president can take a variety of initiatives of their own in a variety of directions. However, these events are likely to upset one side or the other, and can have the potential to backfire if done at the wrong time, or if a president goes too far. The second of these are a number of Supreme Court cases which will come before the American Union state, whose justice system will play a large role in the direction civil rights takes. While nominally independent, the system of the American Union state means that the courts are informally subordinate to the president, to the office of the president. The result of these cases can increase public support for a side of the movement, though it could also potentially destabilize the issue further or cause complications with the other American successors. Lastly, there are a number of day-to-day decisions that the Union state could make in handling major figures, events, and more that will affect the direction of the movement. However, in this way, the president still does not have full control of the country. Going too far on some actions or acting against popular sentiment could hurt further initiatives, so this should be kept in mind, lest the wrath of the American public be placed on the office holder or, God forbid, the party. While the exact details will have to be left to the player to discover, there are a few last points to note on civil rights. Firstly, civil rights does not exist in a vacuum, and the actions of the other successors towards their populations will affect the civil rights movement within the American Union state, and vice versa. Secondly, the way in which the civil rights movement is handled will affect domestic politics and the popularity of various politicians, so this should be kept in mind when decisions are made. Lastly, the decisions that are made regarding civil rights will have lasting consequences beyond simple modifiers. What actions are taken should not be considered lightly, because there is a good chance that they may come back to haunt the nation. The Union Armed Forces. While arguably the most competent out of all the American Civil War factions, the Union Army has fallen far. Insubordination, low morale, and outdated equipment all plague the institution. While the most elite mobile units led by General Patton are fiercely loyal to the government and are perhaps the most elite troops in the nation, the state-based militia units have refused to disband, worried that they will not be able to find jobs back home as the war machine winds down. However, With the government cash-strapped, the time has come to decide what to do with these militias. Each state's militia divisions will come up for review one at a time. The government may forcefully disband them, creating resentment at home, put them to work in the CCC, which costs precious cash, or convert them into regular army units, which is also expensive, via the military spending system outlined in the Economy Progress Report. Go check out that video. Even after these militias are dealt with, it will take a long time to reform the army. However, once complete, it can be a tremendous fighting force to be reckoned with in North America. The Union Air Force is not in a particularly bad state, but generally suffers from a lack of expertise in proper defense industry. It will never compete with the PSA. The Union Navy, on the other hand, will never compete with New England. They may invite German submarine advisors to build up that aspect of their navy, but considering the Germans themselves are behind the Accordist powers on the naval front, the Union Navy will never compete with the Accord. This PR covered most of our 0.1 content for the American Union State. As we announced previously, our content will only go until 1956, though we want to extend that to 1960 for all nations eventually. I guess this makes the AUS the first nation for which a full PR has been released. Huge thank you to Kennedy and Desu for making this PR possible. Hopefully, there should be some more soon. As a bonus teaser, here are all possible leaders for the AUS. Huh, something vaguely familiar about this guy. Can't quite place it. Oh well, he's probably boring. Okay, but seriously, I wanted to go back here and take a look real quick at not the Congress, but like the Arkansas stuff here. Like I really like this the modifiers here. So like right here, McMath's stronghold for Arkansas. Progressive popularity is up 10%. And then the state of Arkansas is now Sid McMath's fiefdom, and few in Arkansas would want that to change, having won a surprise upset election against the incumbent conservative government due to their perceived indifference towards the citizens of Arkansas. McMath's rapid reforms and populist rhetoric, as well as status as a war hero, has won him many friends in the state. Due to this, it is extremely unlikely that he will be unseated in Arkansas. Arkansas politics will be dominated by the progressive faction unless something drastic or unusual occurs. So I thought that was interesting. Now I'm not sure why. Also, you're seeing here that like Tennessee, Kentucky, and a couple other states are also highlighted. So I don't know if that means this whole belt here is the stronghold, but the effect is specifically referring to Arkansas and that governor's race. So I'm not sure. I'm also noticing that there's a couple of other modifiers up here. So looking forward to what that's going to mean. Anyway, that's it for today's report. I'm Conquering History Games. Subscribe if you haven't already. And remember, YouTube memberships are now open. Bye-bye.